The rise of professional rugby in the nation's capital is here, but the road to glory has only just begun. This is the Road to Glory podcast, home for all Old Glory DC faithful, talking all things rugby in the DC region and beyond. Now your host, Ryan Yee, Gavin Hickey, Trinidad Bavio, Roland Pratt, and Farrah Douglas.
Welcome into the Road to Glory podcast, the official podcast of your Old Glory DC, talking all things rugby in the capital region and beyond. And we got a jam-packed show in this one, and it's a show filled with good results because it was a weekend that I think a lot of our hosts will be quite happy with, whether it was the Old Glory DC victory over Toronto, whether it was a Ireland Grand Slam over the weekend, or whether or not that was a Navy victory over Penn State in the curtain raiser. I think our hosts will have a lot to talk about all of that. So we're going to get to all that. We're obviously going to break down the Old Glory DC matchup against Toronto, our overall thoughts on that. And hey, quarter way through the season, Old Glory DC now sits second in the Eastern Conference. Who would have thought? So we're going to get our opinions on that from all of our hosts here. We do have a very, very good interview coming up with Lock Stand South, a staple of this Old Glory DC side. Preview the NOLA game coming up this weekend, and of course what everyone's waiting for, the prediction segment, because there's been a little bit of shifting around here and some people are doing quite well here for our 5 matches in to this 2023 year. So let's get right into it. Like I mentioned, good results, guys. Let's start off with, an Ireland Grand Slam. 2 out of our 5 hosts here are Irish, so I feel like there's no other fitting way to start this show than talk about what is a pretty big performance by Ireland this past weekend.
Well, I'm going a little personal here that Johnny Sexton he's a friend. He's a schoolmate of mine. We played some rugby together. He was only a little pup when I was finishing up, but to see him on a personal level, to see somebody actually reach their potential is a rare thing in sports. And to reach his potential, to have the 4th time ever Ireland have won a Grand Slam, and for it to be at home on St. Patrick's Day, and of course to see Johnny Sexton, a good St. Mary's man from Dublin, to lift the Grand Slam trophy going into a World Cup year at 38 years of age in his final Six Nations. He kept saying it's what dreams are made of, and there's no better way to say it. What a way to sign out for Ireland. It's just amazing.
The script doesn't write it any better than itself, right? It was perfect. No, a perfect weekend.
It was a special day for sure. I was obviously sitting at home. I was just waiting to leave to go to the Old Glory game. It was a late kickoff here, so it was like 1 o'clock. But when there's so much nerves, you're like, is this the World Cup already? There's so much writing on it. And yet, we're all going to redo it again in just a few more months. Yeah. So it was great for him to go out from the Six Nations on a high, be, the highest point scorer of all time as well, yep, which was truly memorable. He is the greatest player of my era now, in my opinion, better than O'Driscoll, better than O'Connell. And that is very hard to say because Paul O'Connell was an absolute hero of mine. But I think Johnny Sexton now in the Irish pantheon of rugby players sits on top of all of them.
Yeah, and for my generation watching this Irish team, it's been always Johnny Sexton all the way through. So really been a huge part of me watching that stuff. So it's been really cool to see.
Yeah, I also want to add that it's not a detail, but it's very important that the under-20s team of Ireland also won. So it's, you have future that is very important. And I am looking forward to Ireland to this World Cup because I really like this team. I really like how they play. It's not only the 15, it's not only the 23, but you have such a good squad, a good staff. But I am looking forward to see if Ireland can do it in the World Cup because you have a very difficult group, but I'm sure you're going to make it right. But, it's such a pity that you have Ireland and South Africa and Scotland in the same group, and only like 2 of the 3 most important teams nowadays are not going to be able to reach the semifinals. But I think this could be your year. It's not like I'm spoiling anything, but I really think that you can do it. Great rugby.
After
Well, oh my
Argentina,
goodness.
though, right, Trini? After Argentina,
That's
Yeah. You know, it's a little bit harder for us, but I have like this little advantage from the side of Los Pumas that we are going to play rugby like closer to the World Cup. You have like this gap, but sometimes it's good, sometimes it's better, you know, but we are going to be testing with New Zealand, with South Africa and Australia in the rugby championship. So it's going to be good for us to have this like little competition before the World Cup, but Ireland is, I must say, in another level.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they can take this momentum and build it going into World Cup. But like World Cup pools are either your pool is amazing and you're like, yes, or the draw is like miserable. Like my experience having played for the US is that our World Cup draw was always like, oh, seriously, not the way they played in the beginning. But the truth is, in a World Cup, if you want to make it to the championship rounds, you have no choice but to go through the best. And I think Ireland is probably primed really well right now coming out of this Grand Slam to be ready for that kind of challenge. And they're playing some really amazing rugby.
What's really exciting as well is Ireland did win the U20s Grand Slam. They won, obviously, the senior men's Six Nations Grand Slam. And I'm very hopeful with my good friend Greg McWilliams at the helm that with the women's Six Nations kicking off this weekend, that Ireland can go win a Grand Slam in that too. And I'm very hopeful for that. I'm very excited about that actually kicking off this weekend.
Is there a name for
that?
That would be a Grand Slam.
There's got to be a historic thing for that. Like
there you go.
Pretty crazy stuff. But all right.
What you are seeing there, though, is you're seeing the benefit of 25 years later, you're seeing the benefit of central contracts. That is critical to Ireland's long-term success. And that's what other teams, other countries around the world are grappling with English rugby and everything else. This is central contracts at its core, and it's manageable because it's a small country. And it's, it's paying off dividends for Ireland. And my goodness, I hope we go well at the World Cup this year.
Yeah, I can hear the passion from you and you and Roly, but we'll see. It should be exciting times here in the coming months here for international rugby for sure. Quickly though, before we get to this breakdown of this Toronto Arrows Old Glory DC match, obviously we got the head coach of the Navy men's head team here on the show, so we got to ask him. Curtain raiser, ECS Shield, big time victory. Navy taking on Penn State, a 47-10 winning over that squad to bring home that shield. Gav, just your quick overall thoughts on that curtain raiser and the experience, and obviously the result in the end.
We don't need to be quick. We can spend another half an hour chatting about this if you want. Listen, what a great experience to be on the same pitch as Old Glory. ECS did an outstanding job with the presentation and with being hosts, as did Old Glory. To take home silverware, beautiful silverware at the end of the day from ECS. ECS Shield was the icing on the cake. But hats off to Penn State. They're always so tough, and one of the things we knew going into it was they will not break. They won't break. And so to concede that try at the end was frustrating because we knew that they're capable of pulling that out at any stage. But focusing on ourselves, listen, we've just been on a journey all week, all season long, and it sounds like such a cliche, take each game as it comes and all that, but that's all it's been. And from an overarching standpoint, it's been very rewarding just to see that momentum continuing. And everything about the Penn State game in terms of performance was another step forward in terms of results, in terms of where we want to be. So amazing experience. Really grateful to everybody at Old Glory, Young Glory, and of course ECS. And we look forward to doing it again in the future. And
I know you've mentioned in the past, Gav, that you had that obviously that #1 ranking in the country, and you I think mentioned it last episode where you're like, it's starting to feel a little bit more that it's something that we're really filling the shoes of. After that victory, a dominant victory over Penn State, are you feeling a little even more that that #1 ranking is something that fits kind of your identity there?
That's an interesting question. Up until Cal, we very much felt that we hadn't earned it. To be honest with you, we don't talk about it very often, but I'm also challenging the players to own it a little bit more, that if this is where you want to be, which is clearly where everybody wants to be, then you have to appreciate that you've got a target on your back every single day now. And you have to respond to that. And if there's something you want to keep, then you got to hang on to it and you got to work very, very, very hard. The easy part of any of this stuff is getting there. Staying there is a challenge. And that's why Cal is such a leading example in this. So Yeah, but at the same time, we know it's at risk every week now. So this time next week when we're chatting, maybe we won't be number one because maybe we'll lose our next game. Having said that, our next game is Army, so I'm not going to say
one.
that.
It's a big one. Yeah, that's one that everyone's March 24th, I believe. Correct, Gav?
That's right. That's right. Yeah,
sing last, Hickey. Sing last.
There you go. Go Navy, beat Army.
Yeah, beat Army. There you go. All right. Well, we are going to break down that match a little bit further here in our upcoming interview with Lockstan South. Obviously, he has the ties to Penn State, having helped coach that squad during the offseason, things like that. So we'll break that down further. But let's get right into it, guys. Let's talk about this Toronto Arrows Old Glory DC match. We talked about it last week about how this was a must-win match for the squad after two tough performances against the Rugby New York and the New England Free Jacks. They now come out this weekend back at home and put on a pretty solid performance. Obviously, they capitalize on what was a struggling Toronto side, but nonetheless, it is a victory in the win column, a bonus point to add on top of that. And like we mentioned, quarter way through the season, second in the Eastern Conference.
Going into this weekend, these are games you have to win. We said it last week that this is a game last year, and I don't want to keep going back to last year. This is a game last year we probably would have lost, and we did lose, right?
Yeah, we did.
We did. So this was a game that had to be won at all costs, and to do that has enabled Old Glory to shake off the shackles of last year and to say, we're a new team, we're not used to this. This is where we want to be. We've got to get used to this. We're going to keep building. And it was a must-win game. I thought overall with their attacking line-out maul was an area I was focusing on. I thought they did a great job. Obviously, they lost Kurt Baker early, but I just thought they rebounded really well. They stuck together very well, and they did what they had to do, which is win at home against Toronto. They had to do it, and they did.
Yeah,
that's exactly correct. I think that they did everything that they needed to do, but there's a lot more left in the tank, Gavin. They're probably played 70-75%, I'd say, from where their absolute capacity must be, because there was periods in the game where, especially at the early in the game, where it seemed a little bit disjointed and disorganized perhaps, but then they sort of snapped back into it and they went to work and they got to the task and they were better in the breakdown, they were better in the lineouts, they were crisper in the backs.
Kicking game was good.
To fire. The kicking game was excellent.
Yep.
The game management of Tito all day long was first class. Kicking out of hand, fantastic. Took his points. I think he got 9 points on the day. He's a mile ahead on meters kicked right now. I think he's doubled up Rodney Iona at this stage. So it's a pleasure to watch a true professional going to work day in, day out, and to see him at a home environment now. That's a guy that we can all get behind and cheer on for sure. He's such a nice guy as well. Oh my God, we got to get him on the show, Ryan. FYI.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely on the list of must-haves to have on an interview coming up in the near future for sure. But for you, Trini, to see a fellow countryman doing that and having that impact, it must be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool, but I'm glad to see like that kind of level of the kicking game that Tito can bring into the game. I think that he's now reaching little by little the 100% that Tito can be, getting comfortable with the team, taking the right decisions in the right time, and not only speaking about Tito, that he's a great person, he's lovely. I noticed the team was focused because you guys were saying this was the kind of match they lost maybe last year. But now I noticed that they were focused. They were concentrated on what they had to do. They have a very good discipline that maybe in the last matches they didn't. And also, I think that, as Roland said, they are in the 75% of the game and the level that they can reach. But I'm looking forward to, for example, the next match that you are going to have a team that is really good, and you can see that difference of the matches as they are going through. But the kicking game was awesome, and I'm pretty excited for what is coming to Old Glory.
And Farrah, we were kind of talking about that during the break, how we were watching some of those 50-22s and just like how incredible it was, and just like, I mean, it's an absolute game changer when you have that on your side.
Yeah, I mean, what I said to everyone before we came on air is I think of all the matches I've watched, I don't think I've seen such a the level of execution in his territorial kicking, like his kicks out of hand they were phenomenal. You take away conversion kicks, penalty kicks, and you just talk about an attacker kicking out of hand, and the precision that he had over this weekend was like, I'm usually excited about the scrum and the line out because that's my space.
We definitely heard about that.
Yeah, but the kicking, and as a forward that often is chasing that, like, you have to appreciate the precision around where he put that ball. And I thought that overall for the team, I think Trini like hit it on the nail. We were so much more focused, but it was the discipline. A little less silly around the penalties we pulled, although we still have a couple of players that need to get a little bit smarter. I thought that we were less frantic. We didn't start the game like feeling as though we needed to win the match in the first 2 minutes. And the way we played, we still played fast. And I think that we play better when we play fast, but we play better when it's disciplined speed. And I thought that we did that better. Like, we weren't so frantic, but there are still a lot of little things, little decisions, a little crisper with the ball to the ground that we can like clean up. But overall, I just thought we were just all around better on the field, but we can, like Roly said, like we still have some percentage that where we can push it. And I'd like to see some of that push come in our set pieces. Like, the scrum was better, but with the front row we have, it should dominate. And I thought the lineouts were better, but we still kind of struggle with that. We sometimes with that defending the drive, the maul. So there are definitely areas for us to clean up, but overall, I was really happy.
If we're talking about Old Glory currently firing at about 75%, is that where we're missing 25% of our performance, or are we currently maxing out at 75% because it's a new team and we're four games into a season, and this is just currently where we are, with the expectation being that we'll hit that following 25% over the coming weeks?
I think it's an expectation that will go higher.
Yes.
I think that a couple of guys need to get their fitness up. I think, like, for instance, Ramiro played about 50 minutes during the weekend, but he's been off. He hasn't had a full preseason. He'll have a few more sessions and things like that under his belt for next week and things like that. All the momentum that's carried in from a win makes you more confident. That brings your game level a little bit higher. Guys are more confident in the system. The team is getting more settled. I think Marcus Young had a fabulous game at the weekend. Also, I think that Jamison had a really, really rock solid game at 8-man, put it in a mile of work. And it was nice to see the carries again start to get a little bit more evened out, because our midfield had a big ball carry. They had 16 carries between them, and at the weekend, which in comparison to last week is a lot more, which really did even out. We were wondering, we were a little bit one-dimensional, and we changed that a little bit more this weekend. So I'm seeing the development. I'm seeing these other areas where we're getting better in. I can see the growth, and I'm encouraged for the future.
Yeah, no, and it should be, I think a lot of fans should be encouraged too, because the fact that, like I mentioned, quarter way through the season, you're sitting second in the Eastern Conference with a 500 record. Obviously, those bonus points that we discussed about in previous episodes, how big they have come into play, obviously, to get Old Glory DC in that spot. But nonetheless, I think after what was a tough stretch, we were hammering it home when it comes to Rugby New York, New England Free Jacks, and the tough test that those were, and to be able to be sitting ahead of Rugby New York and just behind the New England Free Jacks in this one, I think is something that that a lot of fans will be happy with, especially hearing that this is not even the best that they're exposed to see here moving forward, and that there is that 25% that fans should expect that they'll make that jump. But we'll see whether or not they'll be able to do it. Obviously, they take on the NOLA Gold at home again, which is a big one. We mentioned how big of an advantage NOLA being at home is has appeared to be, at least this season so far. fans there. Obviously, we need the support out there, so go on and get your tickets, oldglorydc.com. Go get those there. It'll also be airing on Masson and the Rugby Network as well. We'll break down that match in just a moment's time here, but coming up next, we obviously got the interview with Lock Stan South and his kind of outlook on this season, what he's been experiencing so far, quarter way through, and then obviously talk a little bit about that Penn State Navy matchup as well. So we'll have that right after a break, but first, Old Glory DC is excited to welcome back our friends at the Supply Room, your business-to-business office supply vendor located in the Mid-Atlantic. Visit thesupplyroom.com to learn how to create a smarter office. The Road to Glory podcast will be right back.
Experience how sous vide is reimagined the way we eat from the company trusted by the most renowned chefs in the world. Visit cuisinesolutions.com or your local retailer to get a taste.
It takes leadership. It takes determination. It takes grit. On the pitch and off. At ECS, we're tackling our nation's biggest challenges. From cybersecurity and artificial intelligence to digital transformation and IT operations. We build powerful solutions for a complex world. Meet the challenge. Make a difference.
Are you looking for an exciting and unforgettable live sporting event? Look no further than Old Glory DC, your hometown Major League Rugby franchise. Don't miss out on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see professional rugby up close. With a mix of strength, skill, and strategy, rugby is a sport like no other. Whether you're coming alone, with friends, or looking for unique family entertainment, Old Glory DC has something for everyone. Be a part of this unique experience. Get your tickets now at oldglorydc.com. That's oldglorydc.com.
Knowledge. It's where innovation begins. It's what leads us to discovery and motivates us to succeed. It's why we ask the tough questions and what leads us to the answers. At Leidos, we're standing behind those working to improve the world's health, safety, and efficiency. Leidos.
Pro rugby in the nation's capital is here. Are you on board the road to glory? Back to upping the flags with your hosts Ryan Yee, Gavin Hickey, Trinidad Bavio, Roland Pratt, and Farrah Douglas.
Welcome back to the Road to Glory podcast, and it is the time that most of our viewers have all been waiting for, our Rent Dintmar Bringing It Home interview. And this week, we have been pleased to be joined with one of a staple of the Old Glory DC squad, that is Stan South. Stan, thank you so much for joining the show, man. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Cool. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, so let's get right into it, Stan. Let's just talk about kind of the season so far. We finally hit the quarter mark here so far in the 2023 MLR campaign. Old Glory DC sitting at 2-2. We discussed kind of how you guys have been doing up to this point and the recent match that you had against Toronto and the performance that you had there. But just to get your overall thoughts on how the season has been so far, obviously a tough stretch to start the season, facing some tough teams like Rugby New York, New England, and then now, obviously, like I just mentioned, getting that win against Toronto. How's it been now that you guys are second in the East here in this season?
Yeah, obviously it's a good place to be, isn't it? Yeah, the thing that we can't do is start getting lazy and get sort of overconfident with things. You know, last year was it was a rough one, so we never were in this position. So, you know, for some people it's a new part of rugby, which is really good. But yeah, I mean, where we were first week was a pretty solid week. Then we sort of fell off the bike a little bit, and you know, it took us a while to get our feet back underneath us. And then, you know, it was a good game against Toronto. We could have definitely have done more, but from where we were, it's definitely a step forward.
Very good. Stan, I talked to you on Saturday evening. You you were a little frustrated, I think, not to be in there. Can you shed a little light on for the fans there as to what's going on with you with a little injury update, first of all, please?
Yeah, so leading up to the New York week, just during training, I came down from a line out in a pretty awkward way and hurt my back. A decent amount, and just trying to get over it. Obviously, with a back injury, it's everything's connected to, so whatever you do hurts. I spent a couple of days laying on the floor, just trying to actually work as a human. Slowly getting my way back to it, which is good, and back in every day now with the guys.
Well, let's just focus on the team then, and you can focus on your recovery there, mate. So best of luck on that. But what now that you're sort of on the sidelines, you're a perfect guy to ask this question for. What do you think are the biggest improvements that need to be made now that we're 4 matches in and we've got a nice little body of work there to look at? Where would you say we need to brush up on?
Obviously. Yeah, I mean, we can always improve a lot of areas. I think for us at the moment, it's just the consistency side of things. Actually sticking to what we've been practicing, what we've been going through, and sort of not worrying about the outside of the 5%. You're not going to be able to cover everything. So people are going to make breaks. People are going to score tries against you. Control the 95. So control the 95%. Don't worry about that 5%. There's certain areas over the weeks that we've been weaker on, but I wouldn't say there's anywhere where we're lacking massively. Just a few things to touch up. For me, around line-out wise, I do love a line-out. So some of the defensive line-outs we need to improve on, and then just our success rate when we're coming into sort of like that red zone and gold zone. On attack.
And you talk.
Sorry, Gav.
Go ahead.
One last thing there. So the defense has been playing really, really well, and I know that you're a man that prides yourself on that. What can you say about you only allowed 3 points against Toronto? That must be a really prideful thing to not put a try, especially the MLR, which they score them for fun. It seems bagling the team there with no tries. Everybody must be proud of that fact.
Yeah, massive. In the second half, they started getting their tails up around sort of like that 50-minute mark. Like you said, to not concede a try is pretty good going. Boys definitely took a lot of pride out of that. And then we could have let them have maybe a sympathy try at the end, but we did really well of actually holding out and everybody taking pride in that line and not letting them get over.
Stan, I'm going to jump in. First of all, it's great to see you, and I'm wishing you a very speedy recovery on your injury. I wish you the best of luck on that one. But listen, you're teasing me when you mention lineouts because I think you and I could probably talk about this for hours, and we probably don't have that long. But you mentioned lineouts, and you mentioned your passion around that lineout area, and it's such a key piece of the game. I saw from one of our lineouts when they got their maul going, they were fairly effective during the game for the most part. Toronto, I'm talking about. They, I think we did a pretty good job disrupting a lot of their lineouts and putting them under pressure, particularly in the second half. But one of our decisions was to stand off the lineout maul. It's always a tricky thing because you're going to concede some kind of ground, and the referees, it's a tough thing to referee. How did you feel, or what led to the decision where Old Glory was not going to compete in the maul and try and then get Toronto done for truck and trailer or whatever it might have been?
There wasn't a plan to do that. I think the guys just got stuck in two minds of what to do. We want to try and steal as many lineouts as possible. That's the best way of turning the ball over. And it's the quickest and easiest way. So for us, we mainly want to get up in the air. We want to steal the ball in the air. But I know exactly what you're talking about. With that sort of side of things, I'm not a big fan of stepping away from the maul. I see it as a sort of a cheat way of doing it, sort of thing. It's obviously not. It's perfectly legal, but for me, I see it as you're not taking the forward step into a fight. Mauls are actually fairly fun. when you actually put your head into it. So for me and for Old Glory, we want to be competing in the air, and then if we don't win it in the air, we call it second jobs, which come down, head down into a dark place and put a head in a hole. But yeah, for me, I'm not a big fan. I used to call it a Mexico standoff. Yeah, I know there's a few teams that are doing it, but yeah, for me, it's not my cup of tea.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. And again, I could talk to you all day about this, but just looking at the overall team, and there's been quite a few changes to the starting lineup. Obviously, some of them are injury enforced, like yourself. Some of them, the coach just wants to see the players he had at his disposal. And there's been some nice surprises along the way, obviously, with Colin Groves and Nick Souchon being two of a few. But do you reckon that Coach Sims and the coaching staff are closer to understanding their best 15, best 23, or, are we going to see a chop and change, do you think, throughout the season?
This year it's been really good because there's a deeper depth within the squad around every position pretty much. So I'd say, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the team does get changed around. Bodies get sore, bodies get injured. So if we're able to have that depth within the squad throughout the entire 1 to 23, it's actually going to help the team out more, especially if more people can play, save bodies for potentially bigger games. Yeah, I think a lot of guys have done really well, and like you said, Colin is doing really well. Got his first start against Chicago and scored within the first 30 seconds, I think it was. So, couldn't ask for a better debut in the MLR. And yeah, I think a lot of boys are stepping up to it. It's obviously, it can be fairly scary, but a lot of the boys are taking it in their stride and doing really well.
And again, we're talking to Stan South here, Lock for Old Glory DC here on the Bringing It Home interview segment, sponsored by Rent Dintmar, because where you live matters. And I want to sort of shift the conversation now, Stan, because I know you have quite a history of involvement with the collegiate rugby scene, especially particular in a team that we were able to see in the curtain raiser this past weekend ahead of the Toronto Arrows and Old Glory DC match, and that was Navy taking on Penn State. Now, I'm not sure if you were able to catch any of that match, but I would presume that seeing the result after the fact was not one that you necessarily were a fan of, but it's definitely one that Gavin here was definitely a fan of in the performance that his boys put out there. But just wanting to shift the conversation to the importance of the collegiate scene and kind of seeing those young guys and basically the future of the MLR being showcased there ahead of the Old Glory DC's match over the weekend.
Yeah, I've never seen a bigger smile on Gav's face.
Yeah, we enjoyed that one.
I did get to watch it. It was obviously a good game, and Navy have been on form since the start of the full season for the collegiate side. They're a strong bunch of boys who've got good coaches and they know what they need to do. So the boys knew it was going to be a hard game. The Navy played against Cal and had a good game against Cal, and obviously came out on top against them. So the Penn State boys had just been training. That was their first game out, and obviously you're always going to be a bit rusty afterwards, and you can definitely see that in areas. But for me, which was actually quite good to see, is that they didn't give up. I'm sure a couple of years ago we definitely see it. We saw it a couple of years ago where we'd sort of give up after you conceded a few tries. So for the boys to keep on pushing and definitely get that sort of bonus try at the end was definitely beneficial. I know, Gav, you probably didn't like it, but
not one bit. That one hurt.
But for what's going on and what the guys are going through is they're doing really well. And obviously you got to keep taking steps forward. You got to learn. You got to lick your wounds, and then you got to pick yourself back up and go ahead. And I think their next game is against Mount, so that'll be a good game, and rectify the things that went wrong.
Stan, how important do you think is the US college circuit to the growth of the MLR?
It's massive. America is still learning to play young rugby. You look in the southern hemisphere, over in Europe, kids start playing when you're about 5 years old. So a lot of the guys aren't actually starting to play rugby until they start entering high school. So obviously the younger you can get them playing, the more game time that you actually get going, and the more comfortable you feel on a rugby field. These guys coming up through collegiate rugby and then looking to come into the MLR, it's really good to see, and you can see it within the last few years how much it has improved. And it's purely through, I mean, you can go back to some of the guys that we got at Glory and other sides. There's guys from the draft who are actually starting in games already. So the level is increasing, which is really, really good to see. Obviously, you just want to keep taking the steps forward, and you want the leagues that the universities are a part of actually start growing it a little bit more, getting a little bit more professional around the setups, and actually trying to make the guys the best possible teams that they can be, so then they can start playing teams from other countries and actually going on tours and playing against different people who are playing different styles of rugby.
So Stan, you kind of started addressing the question I was going to ask you. So looking at the U.S. collegiate talent pool since the time you've played, how do you think it's changed? Like, how has it grown? What's the difference between the level of play now, and where do you see our strongest areas of growth have been in our talent pool?
That's a difficult one. It's definitely improving. Obviously, rugby's making more of an impact on sort of society over here now, which is really, really good to see. People are actually starting to get more engaged with it. It's a fast tempo game, very, very physical, which a lot of Americans likes from it. So that side of thing is great. I think where it still needs to improve is sort of building up and having sort of the not newer age, but sort of the coaches coming through now who are actually sort of associated with the sort of the newer style of the game and how it's going to be pushed forward. Obviously, the game's changing year to year, so you're always going to be slightly behind. But I think, just ways things can be sped up, and definitely learning in different type of ways as well.
So coaching.
The coaching side of things, the refereeing side of things. I think there was a game this year when we were coaching where the guy, he only had about 10 games experience, which is frustrating for the coaches, frustrating for the players on field, and especially when they haven't got touch judges or like assistant referees. It's a lot to go into, and obviously schools are putting a lot of money into it as well now. So everybody wants to win, being competitive. So there's definitely a lot of areas that it can improve. But the coaching side of it, the refereeing side of it as well, and then the leagues, the leagues for the universities can definitely improve and actually work together rather than against each other.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, well said, Stan. Listen, I'm sorry to do this to you, pal, but I promise I'll let you hold it next time you're over. All right? Is that right? You can see that, can you?
Yeah, I can see it. There's a few lip marks on it, mate.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I dropped it a few times already. So anyway,
he was trying to put it on his Sheehy voters like a big hubcap.
Yeah, and for our listeners out there, Gav just threw up the ECS shield there that they were able to take home from that Penn State matchup against Navy. Again, a really fun performance, and always fun to showcase that stuff. Obviously, Stan not on the right side of things, a 47-10 win for Navy there. I know, like you said, Gav, we haven't seen him have a bigger smile on his face after that, and seeing that halftime interview between Roly and him, it was hilarious. But again, I think just getting all that insight from you about the team and obviously about this college scene, I think our viewers and listeners have a lot to learn from with all that. I appreciate you taking the time here to speak with us, and we do wish you the speediest of recovery and hope to see you on the pitch really soon.
Thank you very much. I think for me, it's just what would be really good is obviously interacting with the fans a little bit more, and don't be afraid to ask players questions. When the players are walking around and saying hello, don't be afraid to ask questions. Come say hello and, pick our brains about a few things, because we actually enjoy talking about it. Yes, it's a job, but it's also a job that we love. So, any sort of questions, it could be from what was your favorite stadium, or to when was the first time you picked up a rugby ball. But, we want to help improve and grow this game as much as possible over in America. So, any sort of fan base is great.
No, that's awesome to hear, man. That's really cool stuff, and I'm sure a lot of the fans will appreciate that too. So, no, awesome stuff, Stan, and we hope to have you on again soon, and love to chat with you in the near future, dude. But good luck the rest of the season and the rest of the way.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.
Perfect. And yes, that was Lock Stan South of Old Glory DC here on the Bring It Home interview segment, sponsored by Rent Ditmar, because where you live matters. Coming up, we will be breaking down the upcoming matchup for this Old Glory DC side taking on the NOLA Gold. Should be a really interesting one. The Road to Glory podcast. We'll be right back.
It takes leadership. It takes determination. It takes grit. On the pitch and off. At ECS, we're tackling our nation's biggest challenges. From cybersecurity and artificial intelligence to digital transformation and IT operations, we build powerful solutions for a complex world. Meet the challenge. Make a difference.
At MedStar Health, we're doing everything we can to prepare for what if. Like, what if you need care right now? We have the region's largest network of urgent care centers. Or what if you think you're out of options? Patients continue to turn to us after losing hope elsewhere. Or what if you can't get to care? Our mobile care units bring care to our communities, because treating people means being prepared to treat them when what if happens. MedStar Health, it's how we treat people.
Shift into Easy Drive at Sheehy and discover an easier way to find your next vehicle. Sheehy Easy Drive works harder to get you a better value when you sell or trade in, find you more options within your area, and offers you one easy price. Buy in store or online, so you can focus more on where you need to go, not how you'll get there. For an easy answer to your car needs, shift into Easy Drive at Sheehy.
It's easy at Sheehy. Sheehy.com.
Pro rugby in the nation's capital is here. Are you on board the road to glory? Back to upping the flags with your hosts Ryan Yee, Gavin Hickey, Trinidad Bavio, Roland Pratt, and Farrah Douglas.
Welcome back to the Road to Glory podcast, and we have been breaking down the week that was for this Old Glory DC side. A big-time win against the Toronto Arrows in round 5, and obviously there's a big-time matchup coming up in round 6 against the NOLA Gold. Also just spoke with Stan South about all of his thoughts about this 2023 Old Glory season so far, and of course that curtain raiser as well, Navy versus Penn State. All interesting stuff, but yeah, let's start looking ahead, guys, because it is going to be, like we just said before we hopped on the air here, that it is another big-time matchup. A NOLA Gold team is coming in to Segra Field that seems to be rolling right now, obviously coming off of huge victories, a very, very big upset against the Rugby New York Ironworkers 2 weeks ago, and then obviously another dominant victory this past week against the Utah Warriors as well, 37-14 at home. Now I will say Both of those victories for the NOLA Gold did happen in New Orleans. This is the first time that they are coming to Segra Field here in terms of trying to stay in that win column. But guys, just overall expectations for what we can expect for NOLA Gold coming in here to DC.
Right, Ryan, you mentioned there that it was a big upset. And I wonder, as a group, we chat about it, is this an upset that NOLA are beating these teams and beating them pretty comprehensively? Or are we basing that on past history? And so it feels like an upset. Or is this just the way it is this season? It's a new look league in terms of the Chicago Hounds in it and everything else, Miami coming into it. And then also it's just a lot of new faces on teams. So are we prejudiced by the NOLA of old? Or is this the NOLA we can expect to be this consistent throughout this season?
And I guess I'll let you guys take this here, but I guess my original thoughts on this is that I think it's twofold there, because I think first of all, there is obviously the historical nature of New York Ironworkers coming off of that 2022 win, but I haven't seen a team turn around and look so poor in their first 2 matches of the season and turn it around and look so good in their next 2. And that's why it has me a little bit concerned of them coming to Segra Field, because it seems like they're clicking at just the right time. But I just want to get your guys' thoughts on that too.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting thought, actually. I'm worried, obviously, about the pace of Rodney Iona. He gets around the field, the fly half. Him and Luke Campbell, their halfbacks are really nippy. They have, they've added just some real good lumber in the forward pack. Like Florence, for instance. Tom Florence I think he's a great player, but they've also, with guys like coming back, like JP Duplessis seems to be coming into a bit of form again, and I'm on the fence. I'm scared, but I feel like we should be the favorite. We're at home, we're above them in the standings, and you know what? We need to be the bully here as well. I'm tired of people coming into our house and just expecting to pick up points. Toronto would have probably felt fairly comfortable that they were going to get something out of that game at the weekend, and they went home with a big fat 0. And I feel like we should dispatch NOLA the same way. It's going to be much harder. They're a better team, but so are we. And these are the games that we must win. Hold your home court advantage here, folks. Beat the teams around you and let everything else fall. You'll be in the hunt come the end of the season, but these are the games. Let's pick up these points and move along.
Such a French approach where you're expected now to win your home games, and we're seeing that trend play out. And I'd agree with you there. It's a French approach where, as you say, you win your home games, you let the chips fall where they may with the away games, and we're starting to see that play out a little bit. But NOLA got those 2 big wins at home as well, right? So it's an interesting one the way things are playing out this season with that home advantage. But you're right, Roly. These are the games that Old Glory needs to win, and I think it's going to be very tough. I think you said about teams would come to Segra Field and expect an easy points. These are things that, again, that's perceptions of a time gone by, of a team gone by. This is a new Old Glory, a new head coach. Completely. And we've seen step 4 of his tenure last week that hopefully he can build on this week against NOLA.
And before Farrah and Trinity, I let you guys go, I just want to give an update to our viewers and listeners that right now in the standings, Old Glory C with those bonus points are sitting above at that second spot in the Eastern Conference. But like to your guys' point, NOLA Gold is right behind there with a 2-3 record, only 2 points behind with 10 points total compared to Old Glory DC's 12. So again, the stakes are high coming in this weekend.
As is Atlanta, as is who else?
Sure. New York as well. New York is at 10 points as well there too. So lots at stake here coming up in round 6.
Like I agree. This is a game, like we have to win this. It sets the tone around moving the perception of the team from like Gavin's saying, like what the past was and where the team is now. New coach, like it's just new identity all around, right? What they're doing on the field is different. They're more creative. The team has continuity in how they're connecting with each other right now. I think what's key is we have to be above that 75%. If we go into this weekend and we play 75%, the fear that I think all of us have, that because NOLA is this really strange entity with really kind of coming out poor, poor in their performance and that quick turnover where it's really kind of hard to figure out like what happened between game 1 and 2 and game 3 and 4 outside of the difference of being home and away. If we don't come out and clean up some of those areas, match, say, the set piece dominance with an improve so it matches that kicking game, clean up some of the contact issues, the handling issues. If we don't take things one step forward, even if it's only 5%, like that's the door that's going to be open for NOLA. Like we have to be better than we were this past weekend. And I think every game we have improved. And I think you've hit on this quite often, Gavin, that we have to remember this is a new team. Like, okay, so we know a lot of these players, but their identity this season is different than who they were before because they are in a different system, under a different leadership, and it is unleashing some amazing things out of them, but there's still kind of like there's that push and pull of trying to find their balance under their feet. And we need some of that balance this weekend for us to come out on top. For me, it's as simple as that.
Because I think we can all agree that I think the NOLA side, at least from what we've seen in these past couple of weeks, is better than the Toronto side. At least we could expect something out of that coming out. It was just in terms of performance, what we saw this past week, and the errors that the Arrows were making. I don't think we can expect that is going to happen here with this NOLA Gold team here. For you, Trini, is that kind of what you're expecting here between these two teams?
Yeah, and I'm going to turn this thing upside down. If you are NOLA and you are playing against Old Glory at their home, and you've seen Old Glory, they played with the last champions, and maybe that was the game that Old Glory was not able to adapt. But then you had to win with the Free Jacks. The team of Old Glory had the chance to step up. And now, of course, Toronto Arrows is not the team that may put the competition at a level that Old Glory DC wants. But I think this is a key game, not only because of the performance that, as Farrah said, you have to be one level up from last weekend, but it's about the mentality, the important games that you have to win at home, get the points, and just be up there in the Eastern Conference. But you are playing at home, so I think that is going to be an advantage.
I think we've all said that Old Glory needs to win this game, and I think that is correct. But I think as well, if you turn that on its head, if and hopefully when Old Glory wins this game, then this conversation changes, because now the weight of expectation goes up. And now it's okay, well, yes, we won that. Now we're becoming a formidable side. Now we're hitting the straps 80%. Now Coach Josh Sims' patterns of play are coming into effect. Now the coaching, the selection is becoming perhaps a little more consistent, whatever it might be. Now, if we win this game, it's a very different Old Glory. They have to get used to be successful, get used to looking at things from a different perspective. And that's healthy, and that's a good thing for the team overall.
Yeah. That's a great point. That's a great point. And I will add this too. I think what's interesting, we're talking about how tight it is in the Eastern Conference. This can swing two ways. A victory with the New England Free Jacks loss could have them swinging up all the way to first place. A loss could have them swinging down all the way down to fourth or fifth, depending on how the results play out this weekend. So you talk about the statement that they need to make in terms of creating that identity, but also from a numbers standpoint, it's also going to have a big impact in the standings as well. So definitely no shortage of excitement and high intensity and maybe tension here in round 6, because it's definitely going to be a matchup that has a lot on the line in round 6. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to give you what we think is going to happen upcoming here. It's obviously what everyone's waiting for, the prediction segment. It's been an interesting one, tracking it today, seeing how you guys have been doing and how I've been doing over the course of the season so far. A little bit of moving around here, but we'll let you guys know where everyone sits in the standings. But first, got to tell you about Mighty Meals. Mighty Meals is the official meal prep partner of Old Glory DC. These chef-prepared healthy meals can be delivered fresh to you 4 times a week. Order your next meal now at mightymeals.com. We'll break down all of our picks coming up on the Road to Glory podcast.
Are you looking for an exciting and unforgettable live sporting event? Look no further than Old Glory DC, your hometown Major League Rugby franchise. Don't miss out on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see professional rugby up close. With a mix of strength, skill, and strategy, rugby is a sport like no other. Whether you're coming alone, with friends, or looking for unique family entertainment, Old Glory DC has something for everyone. Be a part of this unique experience. Get your tickets now at oldglorydc.com. That's oldglorydc.com.
Knowledge. It's where innovation begins. It's what leads us to discovery and motivates us to succeed. It's why we ask the tough questions and what leads us to the answers. At Leidos, we're standing behind those working to improve the world's health, safety, and efficiency. Leidos.
Pro rugby in the nation's capital is here. Are you on board the road to glory? Back to upping the flags with your hosts Ryan Yee, Gavin Hickey, Trinidad Bavio, Roland Pratt, and Farrah Douglas.
Welcome back to the Road to Glory podcast, and it's the time that all of our viewers and listeners have been waiting for. If you guys have been keeping tally at home, it's been a tight race with our prediction segment here on the Road to Glory podcast so far this season. I will say there's a closer bunch for a couple of us in these rankings, but we'll break it all down here for you. Been a rough week for Gavin and I. We're sitting at the bottom, but hey, we're staying together there, Gav. You thought you were pulling away last week, but don't you worry. We're right back there together at the bottom, 4 and 8. Coming up next, we got Roland Pratt Gavin and myself are 6 and 9. Roland and Farrah now tied 8 and 7. And then we have Trini from a win percentage standpoint doing the best of us so far at 6 and 3. So we do have some ground to make up there. But nonetheless, it's been fun keeping track of this, and we'll see whether or not we can turn things around here. But your thoughts, guys, on the standings so far? You guys happy with how you've been performing here? Because I'm surely not.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, that is right. That is right, Gav.
We're good to go.
Mm-hmm. It's a long season. Some teams are surprising.
That is true, to say the least. That is for sure. But
I don't have to say I'm happy. In the percentage, I'm okay. Let's see this week. But I'm happy for now.
Well, what did you say? What did you say off air, Trini? You said that this was going to be an easy week for picks, didn't you? That's what you said. You're going to keep it rolling here.
And I'm going to repeat it on air. I'm going to go 3 next week.
You did go 3-0 last week, so we'll see whether or not you can go 3-0 again. A lot of talk here for the person that's sitting top. And I'm getting a theme here, guys, too, because I feel like I have like a rotating a shift of the people who are at the top of these rankings where the trash talk really comes in. When you guys are at the top, whole bunch of talking. When they're at the bottom, not so much. So we'll see whether or not that stays the way. But this week, got 3 good matchups here in round 6. Should be interesting on where the picks go. We're picking Houston taking on Atlanta at home. Obviously, we're breaking down the Old Glory DC matchup against NOLA at home, and then of course Utah against the Toronto Arrows at home as well. So I mean, we've been giving Trini the benefit of the doubt so far in this segment, letting her go a little bit later. And maybe that's played a little bit of role of her making her picks. So Trini, why don't you go first in this one? We'll start off with the Houston and Rugby Atlanta matchup. Who do you think is going to win this one?
Houston, without a doubt.
Without a doubt. Wow. Okay. All right. Easy. All right. Roly. That is true. Roly, what about you?
Oh, I'm just going to follow that. It's Houston. I give Atlanta just a little bit too much of that respect factor, and probably because of years gone by, they've always been pretty good. Don't think they might not be quite as good this year. Although teams may have caught up with them. Take Houston.
All right, Farrah, you're up next.
I'd already circled Houston before Trini.
There you go. All right, making sure.
Stick with it. I'm sticking with it.
Making sure that's clear. Gav, again, I'll let you go first here. With my Canadian hospitality.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you. Well, I mean, we've seen the Saber Cats have beaten NOLA, which is an interesting one from our perspective, obviously, and they've obviously beaten Legion, both at home for them in the last couple of weeks, and they have just had a bye week, but I still expect them to go well. I think this is Houston's game to lose. They're going to win this one this weekend, I think, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, I have a funny feeling that there's not going to be much moving around in the rankings in this week. I'm choosing Houston as well. They're at home. I think that's the big one. And again, I said it last week, this Rugby Atlanta side hasn't really proven me anything, at least in this 2023 year yet. Haven't been really impressed with them. So I'll side with the team that's coming off a bye and has looked good so far. All right, let's shift over now to Utah versus Toronto. Utah at home. Trini, who do you have in this matchup?
Utah. Again, without a doubt, because they are playing at home, and what I've seen from Toronto last week, they have a lot to work on. So I'm staying with Utah.
Yeah. All right, Roly, you agree?
If Noel Reid is out again because he took a big head knock in that game, he's probably in concussion protocols again. I just don't see them coming away. They might get a bonus point, but that's about the height of it. I think that Utah will take 5 in this one.
All right, Farrah, who do you got?
Utah.
All right.
Yeah, Toronto just doesn't. Yeah, they don't do it for me.
Okay, Gav?
I think we're hating on Toronto a little bit too much, to be honest with you. I think
yeah, you guys are.
I think that their inclusion in Major League Rugby over the past few years has been a testament to their spirit, their character, everything else. The fact that during COVID, they lived for months down here in the States. In Atlanta, correct. They've been on the road for weeks on end already. They're not playing at home until May. I think that's all tough. Myself and Roly had the opportunity to speak with owner Bill Webb during the Old Glory game, and they're aware of these challenges. Plus, they've got injuries. So I take my hat off to Toronto for the fight they're putting up. They're going to come good at some stage. I do believe that, but unfortunately for them, not this weekend. Utah will hit their straps back at Zion Bank Stadium back in Utah. I think Utah will take this one this weekend.
And this was a tough one for me. But I might be playing the game within the game because I don't think I can let 2 matches go with all of us playing the same exact picks. Being a Toronto homeborn guy, I think I got to go Toronto. I might not believe it. I'm going to try to believe it over the coming days. But if I need to make any jump here in the standings here, especially getting ahead of you, Gav, I think I'm going to side with Toronto and see if maybe they can pull one out of the bag. Do I think that they're a better team than Utah? No, I don't think so. But hey, maybe they can do something special over the weekend. So why not?
Thank you for your point.
Going
Thank
with
you for
Toronto.
Just give me that point. Thank you.
I know. It's a tough one, but why not?
Easiest
I'm going.
one ever. Thank you.
It might be. All right. Moving on now to obviously the matchup that all of our listeners and viewers want to hear about. Old Glory DC taking on NOLA at home here. Should be an exciting matchup. We mentioned it in the segment before that this NOLA team is coming in hot with 2 straight wins, dominant wins to say the least. So Trini, who do you have in this one?
It's going to be a hard one, but I think that what we've been talking about, that Old Glory can take a step up in their level and in the tournament, receiving, like being at home against NOLA, that is, I think, a pretty similar team as us. I'm going to go with Old Glory.
All right. Roly, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think that NOLA are kind of a similar team to us. They do have similar player structure in many ways. I do worry about them greatly. I worry about their halfbacks especially, and they've got a couple of big runners in the back line. I am 100% going to take Old Glory in this game at the risk of upsetting the rest of the fan base. But I do have, the reasoning is very, very simple. We got to win the game. These are the games that we're supposed to win. We've talked about this earlier. I'm not going to back away from it. It's time to put up or shut up, and this is the game to do it.
All right, Farrah, what about you?
Old Glory.
Old Glory. And Gav?
Yep, going off Roly's point, this is a must-win. If Old Glory were to lose this game, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the season. It's not the end of the challenge. But this is the kind of game, like last week, that Old Glory needs to win. But when they do win, again, the conversation around Old Glory changes for the positive, and that is the prize at the end of the 80 minutes. And do this and it changes everything. And we're rooting for them hard this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a momentum shift no matter what happens.
Yep.
standing wise, identity wise, like we mentioned, it has a whole lot on stake in this one. And yeah, I think I'll have to be on board with all the things that you guys are saying. I'll go Old Glory DC too. So when you guys are laughing this week, when I'm next week and I'm moving up on all you guys because of that Toronto Arrows pick, I'll be laughing. We'll see whether or not that plays out. But again, Old Glory DC taking on NOLA at home. Make sure you go check out, go buy your tickets if you're available there. It's going to be a super fun matchup. Again, a lot on the line in that one. It's going to be high stakes. So they got to get the support out. 3 o'clock Eastern, March 25th, airing on Masson, oldglorydc.com. Get your tickets there. Should be a whole lot of fun at Segra Field for sure.
Ryan, one thing to mention as well, if I may, a huge matchup as a curtain raiser, 10:30 at Segra Field. Navy women against Army women. It is going to be a battle. It's going to be exciting. It's going to draw a crowd. And that will get your heart pumping before the Major League Rugby game, for the Old Glory game. So please go and support Navy Rugby out at Segra Field this weekend.
Yeah,
there'll actually be another game just before that as well, with Virginia Tech and James Madison in another round of the ECS Invitational. So it's going to be a full day of rugby down at Segra Field.
Yep.
Yeah, there really is nothing better than Saturday rugby days for sure. And why not spend it at Segra Field there? And again, get your tickets at oldglorydc.com. And I will say, there's nothing better than that Army-Navy rivalry. It is truly a spectacle to see, no matter what sport, that is for sure. So yeah, super exciting stuff. Old Glory DC taking on NOLA. We'll see what they do next week, and we'll be here to break it all down. For Roland Pratt, Farrah Douglas, Trinidad Bavio, Gavin Hickey, I'm Ryan E. We'll be back next week.
You've been listening to the Road to Glory podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything Old Glory DC and beyond. From expert team analysis to exclusive interviews and more, you'll always find it right here. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on social media at Old Glory DC. Catch you next time on the Road to Glory podcast.